decided the neighbors will be joining them for dinner, only to find there's no steak or capone, only frozen waffles.
Capon. You can't call it Capone. I can't let that go. I can't let that go. You miss you.
I must really be stoned because I didn't pick up on that until you corrected him.
Capone.
Capone.
Welcome to Hey, Did You Ever See That Movie? I'm your host, Des, and as always, I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Lynn.
You're rooting around for Ramona.
Always. And joining the show today, the podcaster with a fully packed bong, Pat.
Hey.
And today we will be discussing the 1981 black comedy Neighbors, starring Dan Ackroyd and John Belushi. Directed by John G. Avildsen and based on the novel Neighbors, written by Thomas Berger. As always, this podcast will be filled with spoilers, so if you haven't seen the movie, go watch it. Then come back and listen to the podcast. But before we get into it, let's run the trailer.
In a not-too-distant suburb, on a very quiet street, Earl Keese, a reserved, hard-working homeowner, sits calmly waiting for his dinner. Little does he know, he's about to meet the neighbors. Ramona.
Hello. What can I do for you?
Anything you like. The question is, what do you want in return?
And Vic.
So, what do you say, neighbor? Welcome to the end of the road, I guess. It's a great house. Thank you. I mean mine.
And somehow, his life will never be the same.
Who goes there? Hi, it's Earl Keese.
Columbia Pictures presents John Belushi.
I swear to God, Enid, we may have to move. They're very strange people.
Dan Ackroyd. Kathy Moriarty.
Your left ball in the corner pocket.
In Neighbors. Lock the doors.
Hey, Earl, you go to hell. You're not getting back in here.
They're coming your way Friday, December 18th. Neighbors. Rated R.
All right, let me give you guys a quick synopsis. Earl Keese lives in an ordinary house with his wife, Enid, and daughter, Elaine. His routine is disrupted when loudmouth Vic and his oversexed wife, Ramona, move in next door. Ramona and Vic subject Earl and his family to a bizarre dinner date and a near-death encounter in the front yard. Soon, Earl is ready to take drastic action to get rid of Vic and Ramona, but he might lose everything in the process. All right, so let's get into it. I've got some opening thoughts for this. First of all, this movie cost $8.5 million to make, and it did gross $29 million at the box office in the U.S. and Canada combined. So, I mean, I guess it was fairly successful, although it wasn't received very kindly by the critics. It was Belushi's last movie, as he would die less than 4 months after this was released. And for me, this movie, all right, so I just want to say a couple of things. One, this is a very important movie. I'll tell you why. It's only one of two movies that Belushi and Ackroyd ever did together. And when these two are together, I mean, it's almost as good as it gets. And this was one of my favorite movies when I was younger. I haven't seen it in at least 15 or 16 years, but I was excited to do it. And I watched it 3 times for this podcast. I watched it the first time, and it wasn't the hilarious comedy I remembered it being. I was like, oh, man, I don't remember the movie being like this. But with that being said, I watched it a second time to review it. And then I watched it a third time from a different angle. And it was an angle that I got while watching it the first time. This isn't a comedy. This is a Twilight Zone episode. I mean, this literally is a Twilight Zone episode. You've got, Dan Ackroyd with these blue contacts with these dilated pupils and these mud monster scenes and these vivisectionists and this music and these outer limit crazy scenarios that change from minute to minute. And it feels like Earl is having a fever dream. And maybe this whole movie is a dream, but at the very least, it's a Twilight Zone episode. When I watched it the third time, I watched it like I was watching a Twilight Zone episode, and I really enjoyed it a lot. And Pat, what are your opening thoughts?
Well, I was told that I saw this movie in the theater back when I was a kid, and I didn't really remember it. Thinking of seeing another movie with John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd, it made me want to check the movie out to see what I was missing and see if I remember any of it. And I know you love this movie, Des, but oh my God.
Oh, we'll save it for your rewatch then. Dylan, what are your opening thoughts?
To be honest with you, I don't have many other than I kind of watched it. And when it ended, I was like, what did I just watch? Like I was confused by the whole situation.
Okay. All right. Both of you step into my office because you're fucking fired.
Well, you also have to understand that there are movies in our pasts that we love because they mean something to us from our past. But when you rewatch them as an adult, either they don't make sense to you anymore or people around you don't understand them because they're in a different place than when you saw it. So it, like you definitely have that, the sentimentality that goes along with this. I do agree that it's John Belushi, it's Dan Aykroyd.
Enough said.
Well, the thing is obviously John Belushi was trying to shed a little bit of that Animal House and be taken a little bit more seriously for this. And I mean, it's still a weird movie. It's still quote unquote funny in places, but he obviously was playing the straight man and he was showing he could play the straight man. So you got to give it respect for that.
And with that being said, the movie he made right before this was actually called Continental Divide, and it's one of my favorite John Belushi movies. In this, he actually plays almost a leading man. He's like a reporter, and it's not a comedy, though it does have some comedic, flavor to it because it's John Belushi, but it's not a comedy, and he plays it very straight. He's, it's a really, really good movie.
It's more of a rom-com.
Thank you, Pat. It is a rom-com. Sort of. And he was completely sober for the entire filming of that movie. And he was getting his life together. And when he came on the set for this one, there was a lot of cocaine going around with the people that were working on the movie. And he got caught up in it again. And if not for the filming of this movie, maybe he'd still be with us, but I don't know. But let's get into the movie anyway. So scene 1. Earl and Enid Keese, played by John Belushi and Catherine Walker, arrive home after work at the end of the cul-de-sac. It's obvious they're just going through the motions. After watching some TV, Enid goes into the kitchen to make some dinner. Earl sees somebody moving into the house next door. The doorbell rings, and Earl is introduced to his new neighbor, Ramona, played by Kathy Moriarty. After an uncomfortable encounter, Earl goes into the kitchen to tell Enid the neighbors will be joining them for dinner, only to find there's no steak or capone, only frozen waffles.
Capon. You can't call it capone. I can't let that go. I can't let that go. You miss. You.
I must really be stoned because I didn't pick up on that until you corrected him.
Capone. You know what's funny? I actually made the A capital, so I would say capon.
You almost said it wrong again.
All right. Anyway,
dude, I can't let it go. I'll let a lot of mispronunciations go, like you putting a D in the word genre. but I let Capone go for Capon. I just can't.
I don't know what a capon is.
It's like a small chicken.
He returns to the living room to find his other new neighbor, Vic, played by Dan Aykroyd. Vic offers to get them Italian takeout if Earl agrees to pay and lets him use his car. As the brakes in his car are gone. Earl goes upstairs to find Ramona nude in his bed and Vic going through his bank book. Pat, what'd you think of this opening scene?
Well, the moment you opened the door and you saw Ramona, you knew she was a slut. That was my very first opinion. I'm like, oh wow, she's a slut.
Some deep thoughts.
And when she sits down and helps herself to the wine, and then pulls him to sit down right next to her, yeah, she's a slut.
Oh God. Dylan.
Oh man. This falls under the umbrella of uncomfortable comedy. You know, and of course, like we said, this movie isn't incredibly funny. It's not like Meet the Parents or something like that, but it's cringe comedy. And I struggle with it. So of course, I'm spending half of the time watching it going, oh God, no, because it just makes me so friggin' uncomfortable. And I know it's like your favorite type of movie ever, and it's like my least favorite type of movie ever. So this was starting out right immediately. I mean, like obviously the them coming home and going about their business wasn't a problem, but as soon as Ramona comes on the scene, it starts in with the BS, and I'm just like, okay, here we go.
All right, so I've got some thoughts on these opening scenes. So right away, you're going to notice every time that Enid is on the screen alone, you're going to hear this tribal Indian music.
Yes.
Yeah, this is telling me that she's, banging Mr. Thunder Sky. And she's just thinking about Mr. Thunder Sky throughout this entire movie. And she can't wait for her, emergency meeting of the Mr. Thunder Sky's trousers the next day.
Can we just, for 1 second, this poor actress that had to play Enid, Catherine Walker, I think she had cancer by the time they finished this movie. She smoked so much.
Oh, God, it was horrible.
Every scene, she had a cigarette in her mouth, and I'm going, oh, my God, this poor woman had to have had cancer by the time they were done.
There's a lot of smoking.
There's a lot of smoking.
I can relate.
And did you guys notice the blue contact lenses that Vic was wearing that made his eyes look dilated and electric blue?
He looked like some kind of a alien robot type thing. I thought
100%.
of Data. I thought of the android Data from Next Generation.
Yeah, which is why I say this movie had a lot of sci-fi feel to it. It didn't feel like a comedy to me when I watched it, And you're going to notice that Vic pulls a book off the shelf and he's kind of fingering through it while he's talking there in the living room. And it's got a swastika on it. This is a Nazi book, right?
Oh, yeah.
And, Vic's got this blue hair and these blue eyes and he's, he's showing interest. I'm sorry, blonde hair and blue eyes. And he's showing interest in this Nazi book. And, later on, we're going to see him speaking German to his dog.
Yeah, and I thought plane he has.
The plane. Yeah, the German Red Baron. I mean, I don't know what they're trying to say with all this, but they're saying something.
I mean, it's a little too deliberate to not be saying something.
Yeah, I wonder if there's a scene missing or there's some exposition missing that we didn't get because it's a lot of German Nazi stuff around Vic that's not going to be explained throughout the movie.
Yeah, the dog was German too. German Shepherd.
Yes, correct.
I can only imagine what was left on the cutting room floor.
Yeah. It's funny because there's, people joke that Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi wanted to hire a hitman to kill John G. Avildsen. That's how upset they were with the way he was directing this movie. And Ackroyd wanted to take over. And Belushi tried to get another director to come on and direct a movie, but he was already committed to another movie. I can't remember which one it was. I guess it doesn't really matter. But yeah, they wanted him out bad. And everybody connected to this movie says they hate it. So including Ackroyd and Belushi. All right. So scene 2. Earl sees Vic drive to his house. He sneaks out to see what Vic is doing and catches Enid giving Vic's dog the steak she said that they didn't have. Earl witnesses Vic making the Italian food he was supposed to go out and get while spying on him through his kitchen window. Earl tries to play a joke on Vic by hiding his car, but accidentally pushes it into the swamp. This is seen by Ramona. She tells Earl she will keep it a secret for $1,500 cash. At dinner, it's revealed that Enid met the neighbors earlier in the day. After a very uncomfortable dinner, Vic and Ramona leave after accusing Earl of trying to pork Ramona. Dylan, what are your thoughts on this?
I literally almost died. Whenever she said, well, I wasn't born with your hand in my bush, that was it. Fucking exit stage right for me.
Holy shit. Oh my God. Pat, what'd you think?
Well, I think I remembered writing the note that Vic and Ramona were just horrible people.
Oh God.
Horrible. She's blackmailing him for money because the El Camino, which had to be the biggest joke on the road, goes into the swamp.
Oh God.
I was watching Vic. I've got a history of cooking. Watching Vic pick the spaghetti up off the floor and put it in the container, I almost peed my pants. There were very few scenes that made me laugh in this movie, and that was without a doubt one of them.
And
He's
you know what's funny?
combing his hair while leaning over the stove.
Oh, and goes out of his way to do it. He's like deliberately doing it. And let me ask you this. What did he pick up? Like 3 strands of spaghetti? Was it worth it?
5-second rule.
Oh God. 5-second rule. So I've got some quick thoughts on this. I mean, obviously Enid hates Earl. The marriage is over. She's moved on
I made
to
that same note.
Yeah, she's moved on to Mr. Thunder Sky, and she has no respect and no love for Earl anymore. He is in a loveless marriage.
That's why the dog is a steak.
Yeah, does she give the dog the steak despite Earl? Like, she's willing to eat burnt waffles just despite Earl, right?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
And it's funny. I also noticed, so when Vic says, "Right, sweetheart," he looks at Enid first, and then both Enid and Ramona say, "That's right." I thought that was odd.
Yeah, you almost wonder how much when they met earlier in the day happened.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. And does Enid, is she in on the joke about porking Ramona?
I think she's in on the whole joke. I got to be honest with you. I think she is.
It's weird.
Yeah, but she was mad. She wouldn't have been in on the joke because she was honestly mad at Earl and believed what Vic was telling him.
But didn't care. But didn't care. But didn't really care. Like, she wasn't affected by it. Like, she was like, you know, throughout the whole movie.
She clearly
like,
didn't love Earl anymore because she gave the dog the steak and him burnt waffles.
Oh, yeah. And at one point in the scene, she said, "Why don't you go find Ramona?" Like, she wants Earl to go pork Ramona. So, all right. So, next scene.
Also, I saw you looking at his unit.
She was, you know, I know when a woman is checking a man's unit out. That Ramona, she was checking out mine.
And then she's talking about how many nips to just look at today. Like, the two of them were just like, it was like the gloves were off and they were taking shots at each other.
Totally off.
Like
all right. While talking at the table, Earl and Enid hear Vic's dog Baby being electrocuted outside. They go outside and are joined by Vic and Ramona. We see their dog Baby glowing with his hair standing on end. Vic comforts the dog by speaking German to him. Vic then reveals they were playing a joke on him at dinner by saying that he tried to pork Ramona. Earl then reveals to Vic that he also played a joke by moving his truck, but accidentally sunk it in the swamp. Vic says, "Take me to the swamp." Great line. Once at the swamp, Earl accidentally pulls Vic into the quicksand. He thinks Vic is dead and returns home to shower, but a muddy Vic is awaiting him in the shower. Earl chases Vic out and breaks the key off in the basement door. He exits the shower to find Ramona waiting for him. Vic reappears and Earl runs upstairs and locks the two in the basement. But when he hears power tools and Ramona screaming, he goes back downstairs and is tricked and locked in the basement by Vic and Ramona as they run back upstairs. He calls for a tow truck and a locksmith to let him out of the basement. Pat, take this one.
The scene starts out kind of silly, but when Vic gets on the phone while Earl is trying to call the tow truck, I had to watch it a couple times because I was laughing so hard listening to what Dan Aykroyd was saying or trying to say. Funniest scene in the movie.
Yeah,
I agree.
It's good. Delenn?
Yeah, I agree. That's a very funny scene. I definitely had a moment where I was like, who has a shower in their basement in front of the door? There's a carpet and a shower. I was like, this is a very strange setup. Their basement really confused me.
I tell you a lot. One of the scenes that I really loved in this is when he's explaining how he had been saving those glass jars since he was a child,
Yeah.
since he was 10 years old. And then Vic shows up and he's like, oh, he's just going to get a broom to sweep up this junk. He's like, he's freaking, does it always get that small when you shower, Earl? I mean, I thought this was a really funny scene. I loved it. The scene at the swamp, it's fucking great. Were you willing the towel to fall? Willing? I don't think so. Come on, Earl. They'll go easier on you. Were you willing it? Yeah, maybe I was willing it. I thought that was really funny. I loved when Earl is walking back to the house covered in the mud, and you've got the creature feature horror movie music going, and
the zombie walk.
Zombie walk. I mean, this is great shit. This movie, as weird as it is, has got so many. It's really good. It's next level.
Okay.
All right. Next, Earl escapes the basement to find his car has been towed and his daughter has been brought home by the state police. Vic is twirling one of the troopers' handguns and recalling a story about a man being shot multiple times by one of these very guns. Ramona suggests to Earl he go up to bed and she'll come tuck him in a bit. But before going to bed, he goes into the kitchen to say goodnight and finds his wife and daughter partying with Vic. Vic takes a bite of some edible underwear that belonged to his daughter and makes a comment about them being cherry flavor. Earl punches Vic in the eye and the party is over, sending Vic and Ramona home. Go ahead.
Where do I even start?
No,
yeah, the edible underwear, and I mean, I kind of honestly felt like Vic deserved the punch in the eye for that one. Like it's the man's daughter, like you kind of should be reconsidering what you're doing at this point, but we're all glad that John Belushi didn't go up to bed because the movie would have been over. So
Pat.
I could not believe everybody was talking about edible panties in front of Earl. It's his daughter. The total lack of respect for Earl was overwhelming.
Overwhelming.
Vic bites into the crotch of one of these pears. Tastes like peach.
And of course, cherry.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I loved Ackroyd in all of these scenes, man. When they show him in those tight red shorts, spinning the pistol with his tattoo and the leather freaking strap around his wrist, and the daughter dressed in the punk rock stuff, and a lot of the punk rock stuff in this movie, like DOA poster, all this stuff. This is all because John Belushi was a big fan of that stuff, and he brought all these things into the movie.
Yeah, and it was said that he wanted a whole different soundtrack, like that whole like the trombone, boop, burp, burp, like he didn't want any of that. He wanted all punk music, and the director just wasn't going to have it.
And I'm glad he didn't, because I love this. Even though so many people hate this soundtrack, I loved it. This movie is not the same movie without this creepy, weird, boopy-doo.
Silly.
Yeah.
I
with the
mean, I will
Twilight Zone
say
stuff.
again that the music. So you have a movie here that, like, at the very beginning of the movie, you get that little bit where it's, no place like home kind of a thing, and then it turns into Twilight Zone music. And it's
Yeah.
like they're not giving you the exact Twilight Zone music. They've got the tune from the Twilight Zone in the music that's playing so that you get the clue without it
Yeah.
being like shoved down your throat. So I
I-
do appreciate the little things like that they did. When you get to the point where it was just like that kind of trombone-y kind of slide whistle stuff, I was like, oh, okay, I probably could have done without that. But some of it was very well done.
But one thing I noticed is as the music changed, it changed with each character. Every time you saw Enid, you heard the Indian music.
I love
Every
that.
time you saw Earl or something silly had happened to Earl, you'd hear the slide whistle and trombone.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like every time it switched to a different scene with a different character, the music switched with them.
Mm. You know what's great too, and I mean, neither of you will probably watch this again, but so there's lots of stuff you're going to hear on the TV in the living room. Lots of commercials, lots of shows. Everything there is Dan Aykroyd. All of it.
I knew that. I
I
knew
was
it.
gonna
I knew
say
it.
when they do the mausoleum gag, you can tell that's Dan Aykroyd.
Yeah, but all of it's Dan Aykroyd, and
Yeah,
there
I
are
didn't
all
realize
these,
it until then.
and there are all these funny little skits. If you listen to them, like break them down,
They were
it's all
commercials.
and it's all ingenious. It's all like the Basso Master. It's like these little
Bassomatic.
Yeah, the Bassomatic. These are all like these little Saturday Night Live skits that he wrote up for these commercials coming off the TV, which I just thought was genius. And again, it's just
It
this
was some
movie
of the
is
best part of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It's an important movie, I think, and it does a lot that you don't catch on one view, and you have to watch it for what it is and not what you want it to be for it to really resonate properly. And Earl is going, and Vic is going to prey on Earl's insecurities about his daughter a couple of more times through this movie, or at least one more time coming up. Like he's using this to get Earl out of his comfort zone almost. Sometimes it feels to me like Vic is trying to snap Earl out of it. Like he sees this guy that's being, run into the ground by his wife. He gets no respect. He's settled for what he's got. And it almost feels like Vic sees this and he's just like trying to snap him out of it. Like, dude, stop out of it, So I don't think that Vic is necessarily a bad guy. And I don't think that, and I don't think that Vic and Ramona are a couple. I think they're friends. They're like Bonnie and Clyde. And I think that Ramona can see that Earl's wife is gone. She's leaving him. Maybe it's already been, maybe Enid has already told her this earlier. Like, I'm done with this fucking guy. I'm banging Captain Thunder Sky. And I think Ramona genuinely likes Earl and wants to be with him, even though she's a slut.
Big slut.
Big fucking stinking slut.
Stop it.
All right.
Which monsters hate.
So Earl goes downstairs to lock up before going to bed, but Ramona is trying to lure him outside by making kissy faces through the mail slot. Earl agrees to meet her for some shenanigans, but wants to go freshen up first. He goes upstairs and tells Enid he will be taking a shower. She couldn't give two shits. She's smoking in bed and reading a book.
A book about Indians. It really is. It's like a city book.
When he returns to the front yard, he is confronted by the tow truck driver, who is angry that his time was wasted towing the car back and forth and going through it and finding nothing wrong with it. He punches Earl in the stomach and destroys the front of his car with his tow truck as he drives away. While rooting around for Ramona in Vic's front yard, Earl is shot at several times by Vic, who is dressed in scuba gear. Vic realizes it's Earl and invites him in for coffee. But once inside, again, Vic antagonizes Earl until a second fight breaks out and Earl goes home. Pat, give me your thoughts on this scene. One of my favorite scenes.
Okay, first, I'd like to bring up the fact that Tim Kazurinsky, a future Saturday Night Live, or at that time was Saturday Night Live, was probably one of the funniest characters in the movie.
Thank you. I couldn't find his name.
His character reminded me of the characters Kazurinsky played on Saturday Night Live so much. It was just like a wicked flashback. He was angry. He was talking really fast and really kind of angry and pissed off, and he's beating on him. When he gets into the tow truck and you see the backup lights come on, you have to know what's coming.
Oh,
and
yeah.
he just wipes out the front end of that car before taking off.
Oh,
And
yeah.
the look on Earl's face was like, "Are you kidding me? Really?"
Oh, it's fucking great.
It
It's
was
fucking
hysterical.
great. And what about the coffee scene?
Wait. No, I've got two things I want to say.
Okay.
The first thing is the dry shaving that he does.
Oh my
He
God.
literally was screaming at the television, "Please stop, don't do that, stop. Because I was just like,
And the
You
razor.
can hear it.
And the
this
razor.
The blades.
that little daisy
Yeah.
razor that women used to use back in the day, that little round razor. Oh my God.
Dude, and when he splashes on the fucking the aftershave, and he's into the towel.
As soon as he picked up that bottle, I knew what was coming. I'm like, oh God, no, this is gonna be great.
I mean, the dry shave alone was bad enough. But then to throw the aftershave on top of it, I just was like, ugh, like it was making me sick watching it. And then the second thing I wanted to say was, oh my God, the dirty coffee cup and the standoff between the two of them over the coffee cup.
The best. That is comedic gold. You're not getting that anywhere else. That is Dan Ackroyd and John Belushi at their best. Fucking, you just stop trying to switch that coffee cup now, Earl. Gonna get you a shot or whatever he says. And I'm freaking loving it. What are you gonna waste that coffee? Well, just he's holding it in his hand, kind of wash out the cup. No, he came here to talk. And he undoes that little flappy thing where his pee-pee goes.
Oh man.
I got the impression during this movie that Vic was, I mean, I'm not gonna say, I don't know. Vic was not into Ramona, let's just say.
Possibly. That's a possibility.
Yeah.
I mean, there's things later on in the movie that make you go, maybe.
Yeah. Interesting. Vic is an interesting gentleman from outer space. I thought the whole scene in the kitchen was freaking great. Right from when he's shooting at him with the shotgun to, some of these lines, like, how do you take your coffee? I like mine black and temperate. And, Earl's same. And, so you like it strong or light? And he goes, oh, I like it, light. And you see Dan like putting a bunch of coffee grounds into the nice clean cup that's in front of Earl, and then puts just a pinch in the dirty cup and then switches them around. I love this scene, and then he is super rude about his daughter, and they get into it, and the need of the balls, and it was just a great scene. So yeah, I loved all that.
Watching him stumble or try to get out of the house after he got kneed in the balls had me laughing my ass off. All I could see was them back on stage in Saturday Night Live.
Definitely. This movie felt like a lot of little Saturday Night Live skits all kind of jammed together in a kind of convoluted way where, it didn't all make sense, but it didn't have to, because this is, like I said, this is a fever dream. Earl is the first person to ever catch COVID, and he has been sleeping for days, and this is what he's dreaming about. This fucking crazy night that makes no sense. That's like a Twilight Zone episode. All right, so let's get this. So Earl stumbles out. He returns home to find Enid, Ramona, and Baby the dog locked in the bedroom, laughing and barking.
Oh my God.
Yeah. He goes outside to find Vic washing his car. What was written on the car in black spray paint?
Pimpmobile.
Yeah, Pimp. So Vic is washing the car and offering to go get breakfast. And I love it too. You like these, blueberry pancakes and sausages? And, Earl says, oh, I love that. And he goes, not the way I make it. After taking his money. So he's offering to go get breakfast. The tow truck driver from the night before and his gigantic son arrive to pull Vic's car out of the swamp. The giant son punches Earl in the stomach for mouthing off to his father the night before. Then he successfully pulls Vic's car from the swamp. Vic returns, of course, without breakfast, and reveals and retrieves this red Baron remote control plane from his car and informs Earl he will be moving and leaving Ramona behind. Earl returns to the bedroom to again find Ramona nude in his bed. While receiving fellatio from Ramona, he hears Vic flying his plane. Suddenly the noise stops and we hear, "Come, come," and then, "Oh no, oh no." This song fucking cracked me up. As he hears Enid call for Earl to come quick. Thought was funny. Then we see a burnt Vic spinning a tail of his plane crashing into the house, resulting in a flaming inferno. Earl calls him a liar before witnessing the house burning to the ground. The inept fire department shows up to watch the house burn while drinking with the tow truck drivers. Lynn, what did you think?
I mean, where do I even start with this? You know, the chorus singing.
Oh, I love that.
Very funny. It's
very funny.
Definitely a little, and I also like that. You know, Ramona's kind of like, "Oh, come on, Earl," and he's like, "I can't concentrate. I can only hear Vic with his plane out there." You know, like, so that was pretty silly, but I also love that he just does not believe that the house is on fire. Looks out the window, the house is fine, but in reality, the house is burning down. It's like, how did you miss that?
Oh yeah.
So yeah, it's a very odd movie in that it kind of redirects you in weird ways.
Oh, definitely. Pat, what'd you think?
I thought watching Vic pilot his plane and watching Earl start to have fun with Vic's wife, the chorus, and he can't concentrate because of the plane, and then he gets interrupted by his wife. I'm like, oh my God, nothing is working right for this poor bastard.
And I love the line, "Earl, come quick."
It's hysterical. And then you see Dan Aykroyd all burnt up, and I just like, oh wow, this is too weird.
And
It goes in so many different directions. You get whiplash. It's like, well, wait a minute, what the? You had to back it up and go, what the hell just happened? Did I miss something?
You know, what I loved about this scene, one of my favorite parts is, you know, while they're standing out by the car and we get some more Vic-like character building here, you know, Earl asks us what that tattoo say, and he shows him and he kind of wiggles his fingers a little bit to make the tattoo move, and it says, what, "Born to Party"?
Yeah.
And it's got the dagger and the cup, and he's literally flexing his forearm. He's such a cheese dick. I love it. And he's got this shiny jacket on that says Bat Boy with Vic on it. And then he shows him that little teeny nude viewer. Like, I remember those from the day.
Yeah, me too.
You ever see one of these? And he shows it to him, and he's like, "You fool around?" And, you know, and Earl's like, got the cigar, and I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Good, keep it under your hat." Fucking, and he takes off to get the breakfast. He freaking runs that car up onto the fucking grass and shit.
Oh yeah.
It's pretty good. It's all pretty good. I loved it all. And I also loved that finally this is where Earl is finally just going to say, fuck it. You know, she wants him to get into bed, Ramona, and he's saying, "No, we don't do that." You know, and she's like, "Yeah, you know," basically she says, "Vic said you were a pussy. Vic said you got a limp dick." You know, and he was like, "That's what he said? I'll show him." And he jumps into bed. And what's funny is Belushi is about 27 when this is made. I think that's when he died. Didn't he die at 27?
No idea.
Somewhere around there.
You're the trivia king.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought he was part of the 27 club, but I could be wrong. But I know he wasn't very old when he died. And the daughter is supposed to be in college. I mean, I'm not buying that Earl is, you know, 50 years old, 55 years old. It's just, they don't, does he look 55? Does he look old enough to have a girl, daughter in college to you guys?
Maybe, but not
the way
really.
they dressed him and the glasses
and the spray gray
definitely made him look like somebody who could be her father.
Gotcha.
He was 33 when he died.
Oh, was he? Okay. So more of my bad. Dude, when we did Lost Boys last week, I was spitting out some bullshit on that one.
Not you.
Oh yeah. There were some non-factual facts spewed out on my behalf. I'd
Can't
like to
imagine.
I'd like to apologize to Mickey for that. Anyway, here we go. Final scene. This was a brief show today, guys. I think we're going to get it in under 45 minutes, which doesn't bode well for this movie.
Well, I mean, you definitely did the thing where you are giving us like 3 scenes at once.
Yeah,
So we're flying through it.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to break it down the way I saw it, where it would make sense.
I'm not complaining.
No, no. All right. Earl witnesses his car driving off with a U-Haul attached to it. He goes upstairs to find Ramona in his daughter's bedroom. She informs him that Vic has traded her for Enid and that his fantasies had come true, and they would be spending the rest of their lives together at the end of the road. Earl says he'd like to take her into the city for some food, but wants to shower first. And we get one of my favorite scenes in the movie is Earl, sprucing himself up to Saturday Night Fever. This is classic John Belushi. Like, this is as good as it gets. And he's sprucing himself up. And he comes downstairs to once again find Vic, Edith, his daughter, and Ramona eating Chinese food. Vic reveals that he never bought the house, but moved in when an elderly lady he was taking care of at a nursing home who owned the house passed away. Earl suggests to Vic and Ramona that they move into the house and stay as his friends. This is set to some melancholy soap opera music, but Vic rejects the proposal because he's not going to get the master bedroom. As Vic and Ramona are walking off, Earl accuses Vic of stealing his checkbook. But when proven wrong, he gives Vic and Ramona his car and they drive off. His daughter then reveals that she is allowed back to school after another girl confessed to stealing the ring, and she drives off with the tow truck driver's son. I was going to say something there, but it wouldn't have worked. Next, we see Enid dressed from head to toe in Native American clothing. I mean, this is so cheesy. She tells Earl not to wait up as she jumps into a Jeep with Mr. Thundersky and drives off.
Chief Thundersky.
No, it's Mr. Thundersky.
Is
it's not. It is. It's Mr. Thundersky. Believe it should have been Chief Thundersky, but it's Mr. Thundersky. And drives off. While eating leftover Chinese food and watching a burial commercial narrated by Dan Ackroyd, the doorbell rings. Vic and Ramona have come to save Earl from a boring life at the end of the road. They've decided to take him with them on the road to adventure. But first, Earl wants to leave a little more than a note. He sets the house on fire by throwing his TV at the curtains, and we get a glimpse at the crazy John Belushi as the three drive off. So that's it. That's the movie. Let's get some thoughts on these final scenes. Delyn, what did you think?
So the end of the movie made me wonder how this thing all came about. Now, like, are we putting logic on this movie is probably pretty a difficult thing to do anyways. But so, like, why did Vic and Ramona come there in the first place? Why are Vic and Ramona together? I don't think they're married. So, I mean, like, Vic says they're not, and I don't think they are. Yeah, why did they come to the house? Were they coming on purpose to mess with the other family? Were they looking to just take over the house? Like, I kind of was trying to figure out, how did this even happen? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. You know what's
like,
funny?
What was their end game? What were they looking to get out of this whole adventure? And I mean, it looks like they picked up a third and they're on the road and they've got a new car that doesn't have a broken axle. But I just was having a hard time kind of figuring out, like, how did this whole thing start to begin with?
Well, you never remember how a dream starts or how a dream ends.
Good point.
It's just a bunch of chaos.
And this is chaos.
It's funny because Earl's house has these two windows that look like eyes up high.
They both
and in the scenes when it's night, you'll notice there's two eyeballs that are slanted over, one in the corner on the inside and one in the corner on the outside, and it makes it look like Earl's house is watching Vic's house. It's the funniest thing. I mean, it was done purposely, obviously.
Yeah, because I was going to say, I noticed immediately that both houses had windows up high that looked like eyes. They both
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
I didn't notice the little googly eyes or whatever was going on, but I noticed that both
Yes.
houses looked like they had eyes. And they were
Yeah.
looking at
Earl's
each
house
other.
was watching Vic's house, and it was the funniest thing.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Pat, what'd you think at the end of the movie?
It was weird, man. You got the first thing I see is I had to rewind it. I'm like, was Vic just driving away in Earl's car with a U-Haul trailer on the back? What the hell is that?
Oh my God.
And then you find out what's going on, and I'm like, you start to think, okay, maybe this is a good thing. Earl's finally gonna get some happiness in his life. Only to have everybody come back with Chinese food, and it was all a big joke. And now you immediately feel bad for Earl again. Earl was in hell.
Earl was in hell.
From the and the funny thing is this entire movie took span in like a 24-hour time period.
Yes.
From when they moved in to when Vic, Ramona, and Earl drove off. It was 24 hours. And the house burned down. And
Both of them.
And like, exactly. And like Lynn was saying, how did this all come about? And I'm trying to put together a timeline. Vic is working in a nursing home, befriends an old woman. She dies. It's her house. Well, Vic and Ramona, I think they're just like out to have fun in any way they want.
Oh, yeah.
So they're like, oh, all right, well, let's go stay at this house.
Yeah,
Now
they're
you
squatting
meet-
maybe.
Yes, exactly. And they come across straight-laced Earl, who couldn't be more humdrum from the very beginning. And the wife, who obviously doesn't love him anymore. And all of a sudden, Vic just turns his life, Earl's life, upside down.
Yep.
I think I lost track of how many times Earl flip-flopped from loving Vic to hating Vic. I mean, my
right up
God,
to-
when
Yeah.
Vic's house burned down, Earl was begging him to stay with them.
Yeah.
And only moments before, he hated him.
And then only moments after, he's accusing him of stealing his checkbook and then giving him his car.
Yeah, it's wild. He's back and forth like a pendulum.
Yeah.
But when Vic and Ramona came back, and obviously Earl's what's her name? Enid was running off. Whether it was just to permanently or not, the fact that she was leaving, obviously Earl's like, okay, well, this isn't going on anymore.
Yeah.
So when Vic and Ramona came back, I was actually relieved to see that he just let it all go.
Yes.
And just totally released everything. Throws the TV, watches the curtains go up. The look on his face is like, cool.
Yeah. He realized he had lost everything at that moment. You know, his daughter was gone. You know, she's on a road to whatever she's going to be on the road to. It doesn't look good. His wife is obviously leaving him. And, you know, he's sitting there saying, I got nothing. I got nothing. And they come back to take him away. And this is where I thought the dynamic between the three of them was interesting. So at this point, Earl and Ramona are lovers. I mean, they are. And Vic still wants Earl to come with them. And like I said, I got some weird vibes from Vic in the kitchen, you know, when he's looking at Earl and he undoes that little rubber thing that pops down between his legs.
If I might inject something.
Yeah.
Vic likes to watch.
Vic likes to watch and probably likes to join in a little bit.
That's why the three of them are going off. Vic likes to watch.
Yep.
They
And when
put him in the middle of the two of them on the seat
and
on
he
the way
said,
out.
you sit up here right next to Captain Vic. That's right.
Scary.
Yeah. So so Ramona and Vic are like California with Brad Pitt, or that one with Kristen, the one that Mickey wants to do. What's that movie?
True Romance.
True Romance. They're like partners in crime, and they've probably killed people, and they're crazy, and they go from situation to situation to blow up people's lives and just do whatever they want. And more than likely, when they were done with Earl, he wound up in the swamp or wherever they left him.
Oh, I don't think so. I think he becomes a third partner in crime because he looks so straight-laced. They could probably really kind of like, he could be in on the joke going forward.
No, because I think that once Ramona's done with him and Vic's done with him, they're going to move on to the next guy that they're going to slot into his slot.
Maybe.
I don't think, I mean, that's my read on it. Was I feel like there's a good chance that Vic and Ramona are very deep characters, very dark characters, and we're not getting the whole backstory in this movie. But I don't think this is their first time in a rodeo like we saw. Do you guys agree?
Oh no, this is definitely something that looked well practiced.
Yeah.
And they clearly were very comfortable doing what they were doing, from saying who was it, Ramona, before, when Earl finds her in his bed naked, I had to take a bath because there's a rat in our tub, and Vic said don't move it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the hell is this?
Yeah. And I don't think that this is the first Earl that they've encountered. Like, this isn't the first time Ramona's blown the guy on night one to try and blow up the marriage and do whatever. And, obviously Vic wants her to be doing this stuff. So there's been other Earls.
This is how they have fun.
This is how they have fun. And Earl is a mouse, and there are two cats playing with him. And when they're done playing with the mouse, they're going to kill it. And this movie, there's a lot more to it than you're seeing on the surface. If you start thinking about this movie, you're like, whoa. So anyway, yeah, I know you don't. So, so the couple of things I'm going to take away from tonight's podcast is, one, I probably shouldn't be hosting these because that was bad. I don't have. So for anybody that doesn't know, Delynn is a novelist. She's not published, but she has written a couple of 80,000 word novels. She's very talented. She's very creative. And when she hosts the shows, she obviously, has a flair for, writing out these things. I am, how can I put this? Dumb. So, that's why we have a 51-minute podcast today. And I basically just read you guys the entire movie in 7 scenes.
Oh, dear.
But that's neither here nor there. So let's get into our rewatch scores. I am going to let Pat go first because he is our guest tonight. Pat?
Okay. Let me start by saying every podcast that I've done, even if it's like the movie, what was it, Cabin in the Woods, never seen it before.
Mm-hmm.
All the others I've seen. And I will watch for enjoyment. And then I will watch again and make my notes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
20 minutes into this movie, I started making my notes.
Okay.
If not for doing this review for this podcast, I would never have finished watching the movie.
Really?
I felt terribly sad for John Belushi. He couldn't have been more miserable unless it was raining on him.
Oh, God.
Everyone else in the movie was horrible. I mean, they were horrible people.
Agreed. Everybody.
Obnoxious, forward, inconsiderate. Pretty much everything I don't like about people.
Yep.
In general. And there were, mind you, some funny scenes. Watching Earl get stuck in the quicksand after Vic says, "There's no quicksand in this area," and then sploop, there Belushi's up to his chest in quicksand, and he's sinking. And he's bargaining with Earl, talking about the towel. Did it fall, or did you cyclically will it to fall?
Cyclically will it? I don't think so.
Probably one of the few scenes that made me laugh. And then as he's climbing out of the quicksand, somehow, I had to watch it a couple times to figure out how the hell it happened. Somehow Vic ends up in the quicksand. And I'm like,
Yes.
whoa, what the hell is this? There's a reason I'm called the podcaster with a fully packed bong.
Because you have a fully packed bong?
At all
Most times before the movie, before we do the podcast, it helps me relax to get a little high. All right, maybe not a little, because I can get chatty, especially about movies. I think I had to actually double or triple my intake watching this movie just to get through it.
Oh, God.
I went in with an open mind, but maybe I think what would have made it a little more interesting to me was if Earl had just started to go crazy. And I mean, like, totally crazy. He flip-flopped from hating Vic to loving Vic to hating Vic to loving Vic. And it was so weird watching the scenes go from scene to scene, trying to figure out what the hell one had to do with the other. Mind you, again, there were some great scenes. I loved seeing Tim Kazurinsky. I thought his character was probably the funniest in the movie. The way he walked, the way he talked, the way he beat up on Earl.
Yeah.
It was good seeing the movie again. I did remember seeing pieces of it when I was a kid in the theater, and I don't remember my reaction to it. But this movie would not get a second view from me. there were some funny scenes, but there were too many things about it that I did not like.
So your rewatch score is?
1.
A 1. Oh, ouch. That slays me. Lynn, let's hear your thoughts and your rewatch score.
I agree with a lot of what Pat said, that, this pendulum swinging back and forth, hate, love, hate, love, hate, love. I'm sure that was part of what they were trying to do, but it just made kind of for a confusing viewing experience. And as I said at the beginning of this, I'm not a fan of cringe comedy. It tends to take me out of it because I spend so much time cringing and feeling uncomfortable. It's just not really my jam. That being said, this is John Belushi's last film, so you got to give it a little cred. And again, he was trying to step outside the Animal House box, and I give him credit for that.
Listen, before you give your score, don't hold back because it's not going to matter.
I know. Let me give my score. Don't be influencing my score. So because of that, I'm going to give it a 2.
A 2. Very nice. So Pat has given it a 1 and Dylan has given it a 2. And for myself, this movie, I watched it 3 times for this, and I loved it every single time for different reasons. And I loved it more each time I watched it because I started seeing it for what it was, which was a scientific experiment in horror and weirdness. And it's just no other movie like it. It's a one-off. It's a one of a kind. It's Dan Ackroyd. It's John Belushi. It's monsters, it's vivisectionists, it's aliens, it's everything. It is mashed into this ugly little chicken pot pie that I just gobbled up. I loved it. I could watch it again right now, and I just may. So, with your 1, his 2, and my 10, that brings this movie up to 13 rewatches. This is the highest score we've ever seen a movie. We've never seen a score this high. We've never seen a score this high. This
I demand
is
a recount.
this.
There's
Yes.
a tingling chat somewhere.
And, yes. So it's 13. We usually don't give out scores that high. It usually is capped off at a 5. But this one is a 13. And
It is not.
it's a momentous occasion, as Have You Ever Seen This Movie gives out the highest possible praise to this absolute gem of a movie.
It's a dumpster fire.
If you haven't seen this movie, what are you waiting for? Go see it. We loved it. And
Who's we?
we will.
Is it you and the little piece of rabbit fur you keep in your pocket?
Oh, that's actually a movie we're going to have to do eventually as well. And I think we're going to have to bring Pat on for that one. I don't think he's ever seen it. It's Grandma's Boy, and it is right up his alley with lots of video gaming and pot smoking. But we will be back next week where we will be reviewing the movie Talk Radio. And we'll be doing that with Tony. He'll be joining the show again, the podcaster with a degree in terror. And as always, I want to thank you, Delyn, for joining me tonight to break down this movie. I always love talking about movies with you. And Pat, you never, ever disappoint. Always have something to say. Always fun to talk about movies with you. And I thank you for taking the time to watch this. I know you really didn't want to. And as always, I want to thank our viewers. Actually, you're not viewing this, you're listening to it. So I would like to thank our listeners for stopping by, listening to the show, and supporting the show. And if you'd like to support the show further, you can do that on our Anchor page. It helps us put out better quality material, which wouldn't be hard with what I rolled out for you tonight. Because this was pretty.
Say one more thing.
Yeah, oh, please do.
I may not have enjoyed the movie, but I thoroughly enjoyed talking about it.
I always do. So that's it for this episode. So join us again next week for Talk Radio. It's another great movie. Delyn is going to do the hosting on that one. I hope I can talk her into it.
No,
I hope
that's a you movie.
Listen, I don't think there should be a Me You movie anymore. I suck at this, and it's bringing the podcast down. I know it's a little more work for the person that has to do it, but I've just proven over and over again that I am just not fit for this position at this company. I am firing myself. So that's it, guys.
You're fired.
Exactly. So that's it. We'll see you guys next week. We're gonna go and have some Capone for dinner, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Later.
Oh, well, with that being said, it's funny because the movie he made right before this was actually called The Great Outdoors, and it's another one of my favorite movies. And